at the end of our testing. Once again, thanks very much, Antonio, to give your experience in our testing, in your testing, and it's a great honor for us to have you today with us, and to give a big honor not only for us but for all of our followers, importers, and the wine lovers to have you with us. We have 10 more minutes to give them the opportunity to make questions and to leave a comment for me and for you.
Hi, Mr. Chelai. Yes, my name is Mimi from Alcotrade from Japan. Thank you very much again for inviting us, the whole team. I've been enjoying it very much. It was very nice presentation. Thank you so much. So my question would be, it goes to both Mr. Chelai and Mr. Galloni. I would like to know, if you were to give those wines a gender, all of them, which gender would you give? That is my question. Because Mr. Galloni said that, for example, Isodi, he would call it a princess, or he said Rocca di Frassinello is pretty. So maybe that reflects to how you would call the wine a gender. Do you understand what my question is?
I understand, and I'll answer. I said Sodi was like a prince or a princess.
Okay, yes.
Because today, so you see, Spanish is my first language, and in all the Romance languages, things have genders. Okay, so it's very difficult to not think of something as masculine or feminine because everything is preceded by a gender. But in today's world, you get into trouble by saying something is feminine or masculine. So you have to sort of think about in our current times. So that's why I said it was like a prince or a princess. But what I meant with that wine was that it had a noble bearing, you know, and so it was more about that. But I just think, honestly, I'm trying to change the way I think about that, because I know that it's sensitive to a lot of people, even though I think it may be a little bit overdone, because again, especially these wines, these European wines, are made in a culture where everything has a gender. So it's very, it's il Sangiovese, that's masculine, you know? And so it's like very difficult to take a culture and disassociate it from its very roots. But, you know, we live in today's day and we have to be sensitive to that, which is fine. But that's why I said that the wine was like a prince or a princess. So I would say, I wouldn't really ascribe a gender to the wines. I would just say, what I'm looking for in these wines is balance, harmony, persistence, because the wines are young. And a lot of these wines some of these wines are meant to be drunk in the next couple of years, but some of them are meant to age. And so I'm looking, for balance, harmony, and the things that make me think, hey, you know what, this is going to be an interesting wine in 5 years and 10 years, etc. So. Alessandro.
Yeah, that's Michelle. I think you had a fantastic answer to your question, you know. So it's Michelle.
Good.
Yes, I did. I did have. Thank you so much.
Wow, that's good.
We lost you. We lost you.
Okay.
Okay. Ciao, grazie.
Hello, is it my turn?
Yes.
Ah, very good. Alessandro, ciao de nuevo. Well, listen, congratulations on the Rocca di Frassinello. I think that's the best Rocca you've made. Full stop. I think it's fantastic. I have a question, however, on the Baffonero. This is, I think, the 5th vintage I've tried from you directly. And stylistically, it is very different to the ones you've made before. It really is. To me, first of all, I noticed that the alcohol is 15%, but it carries the alcohol very, very well. It's completely balanced. It's not out of balance at all. However, varietally, it's the first Baffonero that I've had, which is not obviously Merlot. When you first try it, when you first approach it, you go, what is this? What is this varietal? It is quite, it's powerful. It's obviously opulent, but it's not obviously varietally Merlot, at least not to me. I think, Antonio, I think you might have made the same comment in passing that it wasn't obviously Merlot to you up front. But so stylistically, Alessandro, where are you looking to go with this particular style? Obviously, you've got vines that are now older and giving you different results, but are you looking for power? Are you looking for grace? Where are you looking to go with this style going forward?
To find the great harmony, the great balance, the great finesse, trying to, and of course, it's always a compromise, because the first important thing is the age of the vineyard is extremely important, and to achieve the highest result, you must work with a good vineyard with enough age to produce the grapes you really want. And secondly, I try to bring into the wine the best characteristic of the grapes. That is my philosophy. So I don't follow the power and the energy only. So my idea is to try always to make a balanced wine. So to try to have a right compromise between power and elegance. And of course, the main important thing is the grape you are using to produce the wine. In the case of Baffonero is 100% Merlot, so it's in Maremma it's warmer than in Chianti. It's easier to make a full body wine, but it's not my target, my mission. My mission is to make a wonderful wine with a wonderful body, but at the same time with a beautiful elegance and also with a great freshness, because sometimes it's easy to find a full body that are not very drinkable. So that just after one glass, you are okay. So our mission is to make also in this wine a good drinkability.
Hello, ciao, Antonio, ciao, Alessandro. Such a pleasure to be here. I guess I'm one of the very few Latinos. Cheers from San Juan, Puerto Rico. My question for you, Antonio, I would love to interview you in the future for my Latin American audience via Instagram or via Zoom. We have a far-reaching audience. My question here is, I sensed a common thread in all these wines, even though they're from different soils and different parts of Italy. There's this energy and there's this restraint. Do you see a common thread? Sometimes the merit is of the soil, but also you can see the philosophy of the winemaker. I mean, and Alessandro, his wines are both bold, powerful, but very restrained and very elegant. Even though we're talking about three different places, do you see a common thread between the properties, the wines, the philosophy? Thank you.
You're asking me? I think that it's kind of what I alluded to earlier. I believe that wines are the product of the times that they're made in, right? So in the 1990s and the 2000s, the whole world wanted rich, powerful wines. The idea was to stress the vineyard, to encourage this competition of plants, to have very low yields, dark wines. And this is true of Italy. It's true of Burgundy. It's true of course, Bordeaux and Napa Valley. And I just think that what we're tasting today is the wines of this era, and that people are just searching for something different. And this is one of the benefits of being able to spend time in lots of places around the world, is you start to be able to link things together. And what I think is that it's just what we prize today in the year 2020 is different than 20 or 30 years ago. And today, just in general, we're looking for brightness, energy, elegance, finesse. I mean, look, I have two glasses here. This is the Zalto Universal. This is the Conterno Sensory glass. And 30 years ago, everybody wanted those huge Riedel glasses that when you pick them up now, they weigh like 3 pounds. And you're like, how did I ever use this before? And so this is it's just a development in our culture and what we prize. Today, we want these glasses that are light because we think that it shows the wines, the purity and the detail in the wines. But you know, back in the day, everybody wanted the huge Burgundy balloon that you could put almost an entire bottle of wine in, you know? So it's just I just think it's just an evolution in the way people think. And, you know, people today travel a lot more than they used to. You know, winemakers, they have friends all over the world. They travel. There's a lot of information exchange. If I'm in Champagne, I'll run into producers from Piedmont. If I'm in California, I run into producers from France. And this is much more common than it used to be. And so there's a lot of exchange. And I just think that the wines today, they reflect the spirit of today. And that is almost regardless of the region. You know, people forget that Burgundy used to be an unsellable wine, and that they planted back in the 90s and 80s and 90s, people wanted to make dark colored concentrated Burgundies because at the time Bordeaux was considered the model for wine. And they planted early ripening clones and used a lot of new oak. And today these things are completely forgotten and made really extracted dense wines. And today, obviously, it's a totally different world. So you have to always just remember that the wine is a product of its time. And today we prize in wines just generally greater freshness, greater energy. I think also because there's many more great wines made, professional buyers and consumers are interested in a wine that tastes like a place. Because you know what? I've got this phone that like millions of other people have, and I have this Apple computer that millions of other people have. But a wine that tastes like a place is one of the few things in the world that's still made by nature, where there's a variation by vintage and there's a variation by the person who made it. And we have very few things like this left in the world anymore. So naturally, the tendency is to say, I want my wine by the ocean that tastes like the ocean. I want my wine that's in a mountain vineyard to taste like it's from a mountain vineyard, and single variety wines to taste like single varieties, because people have so many choices today. So I think you have to consider all of that and say the reason wines are the way they are today is because we have a focus on indigenous grapes, mostly wines that are from a place, wines that have less oak and that are fresher. And to give you an example of how prevalent that is, if you ask winemakers, they will tell you that today's medium toast barrel is different from the medium toast barrel they were getting 10 years ago and 20 years ago, because the coopers themselves have lowered the toast in the wood. So even if you do nothing, the wine is going to be different. And that's also a reflection. So these very big coopers, you know, Alessandro mentioned some of them, they're not producing the same barrels that they were producing 10 or 20 years ago. And then lastly, I'm sorry to talk so much, but you have to take into account climate change, which is naturally producing wines with more alcohol. Alcohol extracts from oak. And so people are saying, I need to use less oak and I need to shorten. One of the trends in the world is shorter aging in oak, more time in barrel, and more neutral oak, because with wines that have more sugar, more alcohol, you can extract too much if you leave the wine in oak too much. And this is, you could go to Petrus and they'll tell you this. You could go to Dujac and they'll tell you this. I mean, it's totally different worlds. So to sum it up, because I know we're at our time limit, but basically I think when you taste the wine, you have to remember the context in which it was made. And today, what we want is different than what we wanted 30 years ago. And when we're all old, 20 years from now, they're going to want something else. Something else will be driving how we think about wine. But for now, I think this is more a commonality of the way wines, high quality wines, are made all over the world, as opposed to just being limited to, you know, these particular 6 wines. And, you know, I always hope when I do a tasting like this that people, I mean, it's fun to taste the wines and to talk, but I hope that people leave with 1 or 2 things that they can remember and that they can use. And so maybe we've shared something here that might be useful to you, not just thinking about these wines, but more broadly. And one of them is, I think, a really important concept, which is that wine is a product of the time and the era in which it was made. So I know it's a long answer, but soy Latino. Oh, this looks like a fun tasting.
Yeah, they are in China. Right now they reopen all the social activities. Ciao, Eric.
I haven't seen a picture like that in a month.
Yeah, we are come from China, Xiamen, a beautiful city. So we love this wine. My question is, this wine are young wine or vintages to 2017, 2018. But why can they do the balance and elegance? This is my question. It's young wine, but why can we do the balance and elegance and smooth and easy to drink?
But I think the question is, how is it possible that wines that are so young are so well balanced and easy to enjoy?
Ah, okay, good. Do you want to answer, or I can answer?
Sure. I mean, I think it's a good question for both of us to answer because we have different
Yes,
perspectives. I think that one of the major changes, there's many major changes in wine around the world, but there's no question that there's a greater focus on sustainable farming, on creating high quality fruit in the vineyards. Global warming has helped certain colder regions like Chianti Classico make more polished wines than in the past. And I think people just learn over time. We all get better at our jobs. I'm not sure if it's the case necessarily here, but one of the big changes in the world of wine, again, talking about things that have happened all over the world, is that you've got smaller fermentation tanks, more attention in fermentation, and just more attention to detail. And as I like to say, making wine is like Formula One racing. The smallest detail makes the biggest difference. But if you add up one or two details, that is a humongous difference. And so I just think it's, wines all over the world are delicious to drink young because people have learned a lot and are paying more attention to details in farming and winemaking than in the past. And that's just the nature of the times that we live in. I mean, there's never been more great wines made all over the world than right now, and that's pretty cool. Alessandro can give you the technical explanation.
Yeah. For my personal view, of course, I agree every single word you said, Antonio. But for my personal view is the real challenge of every winemaker, even when we are talking about the top wine, the very important wine in the portfolio of the property. The real challenge is to try to make the wine, I cannot say immediately easy to drink, but immediately enjoyable. It's really true. So because I think it's not right to present a wine today and to invite the customers to buy a bottle of wine and to ask them to drink in 50 years or 20 years or even 2 years. So why, if you present the wine today, the minimum level of drinkability must be guaranteed. So that is my my mission. So every time when I produce a bottle of wine, even when we are talking about Baffonero, Isodi, Rocca di Frassinello, all the top wines with a long aging process, I try to make the wine that's really enjoyable since the beginning. Of course, with a beautiful prospect. No, so it's the idea to drink the wine and to enjoy the wine for 20, 25, 30 years. But at the moment when you present the wine must be enjoyable. So maybe now as our friend from Weinberg wanted to make a question. Ted?
No, I did not have a question, but I'll take this opportunity to thank you and Antonio and Mr. Panerai for putting on such a wonderful tasting. But no, I did not have a tasting. Oh, question. Thank you.
Hi, Antonio. Hi, Alessandro. Thanks again for setting up this amazing tasting. I have a question about Sicily. I mean, I love the Nero d'Avola. I think it's a very balanced wine. Everybody was saying that your common thread, it's about balance in the wines, and I agree totally. So my question is about, are you setting up a trend in Sicily? Do you guys see and foresee that many wineries in Sicily are going to follow this trend of more balanced wine and less opulent in terms of body, in terms of sugar? And are you think that this is going to be like a trend overall for the future of the Sicilian wine?
Grazie, Enrico, for your question. As I said before, this is my idea, my attitude, my passion for wine. So it's since the beginning in my career, I try to make wines with a beautiful balance. So because of course in Sicily it's extremely easy to make a full body wine, you know. So but I since the beginning I teach all of my team in Sicily, especially in the vineyard, to prepare the vineyard to make enough balance in the wine I really need. So because as we said in Italian, so il vino buono si fa nella vigna, no? The good wine is made in the vineyard. So and the first important part of the quality is made in the vineyard. So for this reason, to work in the vineyard in the right condition, in the right system, to arrive at the end of the season with enough acidity, enough balance, and enough freshness. This is extreme, and the good balance is extremely important to make a very good wine in the general sense. That's my. It's not a trend for me, but it's my style of work. So just to answer to you, there is one question they passed to me from the chat from Rob from Wine Exchange Asia from Singapore, and he asked me the difference between comparing 2016 and 2015 of Esodio di San Niccolò. So as of course there's two beautiful vintages, but again 2016 for my personal opinion is a perfect vintage in any sense. So starting from the acidity, balance, ripeness, wonderful alcohol percentage in the sense that is perfectly in a roundness, in ideal answer. And 2015 is also a great vintage, but if I have to say the main difference is 2015 is more in the direction of body, of strongness, but 2016 is more completed.
I was very interested in this global conference between
Buonasera, dottore.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning,
Good
I don't know. Everybody come from a lot of parts of the world. I think we all miss Vinitaly this year, but I'm sure that next year we have the opportunity to do better with this global testing. So I hope we have the opportunity to stay together and to taste these magnificent wines in a great tasting in Vinitaly. And I was very, very impressed by how many people was connected today. It means that the world of wine is going on also in this world crisis, and this is a very hopeful situation, and I look forward for better and better in our business. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mantovani. And I have another question by chat. Is It's a question made from Colorado. Mario Scano asked me about the use of cement fat. We use a cement because, as we said during the tasting, a cement gives the opportunity to the wine to breathe and to make a better opportunity to the wine to start since the beginning to be more balanced and more in a perfect shape that we really want to present the wine. Grazie, Mario. We have two more comments. One is from our dear friend Massimo Lanza that he congratulates with us about the quality of Tirsat. Grazie Massimo. He said that he had a great attitude to age for a long time in the bottle. It's a compliment about Baffonero from one of our wine lovers that there is a cycle. I can identify him. Thanks very much. He said, amazing, one of the best Merlot from Italy. Grazie, thank you very much. And he said that I still remember the tasting happened in Sri Lanka. This is a friend from Sri Lanka. So it's nice. Grazie. Thank you very much.